There are worlds that exist beside our own, theme parks shaped by different choices, a Hollywood untouched by interruption, a kingdom where dragons still soar, and a showcase that never stopped expanding. These are not memories. Welcome to alternate Disney World dimensions.
Tonight we are going to be going to a Walt Disney World that we have never known before.
That's right. We are going to visit 3 distinctly different timelines than what the current Disney World presents. This is not just going back in time to bring back extinct attractions like Dinosaur or the Great Movie Ride. Instead, this is going to peer deep into rumor and concept and picture a world of Disney that we never got to see.
So the first timeline that we're going to be jumping back to today takes us to Animal Kingdom to encounter all kinds of different mythical creatures in Beastly Kingdom. So once upon a time, there was an additional land that would have been added shortly after the opening of Animal Kingdom, called Beastly Kingdom. And this would have been focused entirely on all kinds of different mythical creatures, from dragons to unicorns, all kinds of things that you could have seen that we don't typically think of as being part of present-day Animal Kingdom with animals that we can see out in the wild.
This area actually ended up becoming Camp Mini Mickey, where you would have found lots of meet and greets with friends, not only Minnie and Mickey, but also animated features throughout the time. I think I remember meeting like Turk from Tarzan there at one point.
Daisy and Donald sometimes too.
Yeah, Daisy and Donald were there as well too. And then we all know this area now to be the world of Avatar, Pandora. So it really calls into question, what would have this area have been like if Beastly Kingdom even come to play?
Right, so if Beastly Kingdom had really been in that portion of Animal Kingdom, would Pandora have eventually taken this over? Would Pandora have taken over another area like Dino Land sooner in the timeline? Would they have tried to find another expansion pad somewhere else? It even raises the question of Festival of the Lion King, the very, very popular show that's now located in the Harambe Theater in Africa. This was originally placed just as a temporary show in Camp Mini Mickey. So would that have even happened in Camp Mini Mickey, or would it have been placed somewhere in Africa sooner? Would it have been placed somewhere? I'm hopeful, because it was very popular to me personally, that it would have, but it does raise the question.
The only benefit to that would have been we never would have had the open air theater. If anybody remembers that from Camp Mini Mickey, sweating everything everywhere while watching that show was not worth it. Thank goodness they have the temperature controlled theater now they do in Africa. Funny though that we talk about Beastly Kingdom, because you could have found this in a completely different theme park. Universal, when they built Islands of Adventure, a lot of the Imagineers who worked on Animal Kingdom and had Beastly Kingdom as one of their ideas made their way over to Universal in the early 2000s to work on their second park. If any of you have ever been to the Lost Continent back in the day when they had Poseidon's Fury and Dueling Dragons, you got it. Those would have been rides you possibly would have seen in Animal Kingdom.
Or at least pulled some kind of memory from that strand of Beastly Kingdom.
Yeah, there was supposed to be a unicorn boat ride in Animal Kingdom. There was supposed to be a water show, which definitely Poseidon's Fury comes to play with that one. And then there's supposed to be a dragon roller coaster, which the dragon is actually something very important to Animal Kingdom today.
You can actually still find the dragon's lair in Animal Kingdom. So there's a little back path between the Pandora, the world of Avatar, and Africa, and there's a little outcropping along the water that kind of looks almost volcanic. It's got little holes in it.
Very random rocks, essentially.
Yes, they don't look like they really fit. And that's because they were going to be part of Beastly Kingdom. You can look inside, and that would have been where the dragon, supposedly, would have been blowing out like fire and steam to give the idea that that's the dragon's lair. You can also still find at the entrance in the top entry area, they have all kinds of different animals, like the elephant, that's an iconic like figurehead out in the front. You can also see one of the mythical creatures that would be out there too, the unicorn parking lot, a lot of nods to Beastly Kingdom.
Well, that's just one timeline we're going to visit today, because we are now going to hop back into our I guess, timeline travel machine, we can call it. And we're going to go to another Disney park where we can talk about things that never came to fruition. This being Epcot, where the World Showcase expansions that never came to be, we're going to go talk about now. So now we enter the time where we're going to travel the world. In this case, a World Showcase that would have had the expansions that were rampantly rumored in the late 80s and the early 90s, with many countries trying to pick one of the expansion pads that actually still exist to this day, but none of them have ever come to this point in the year of 2026.
One of those really big expansion pads that I love the history behind is actually in Germany. So this wouldn't have necessarily been an expansion pad for an additional country, but this one would have been for within Germany to expand and have a ride, as well as the stores and the restaurants that they currently have. So you can actually find in Germany, as you're heading towards the back, towards Beer Garden, there's this beautiful mural along the wall, and that's actually a hollow wall. If you go up to it and knock on it, you'll hear that it's hollow because behind it there is an expansion pad where you could actually potentially have a ride. This was supposed to be rumored to be a potential river ride, like floating down the Rhine River and going through Germany.
And the other that really comes to mind, speaking of rides that never came to fruition, in Japan, there was supposed to be a thrilling roller coaster ride in the pavilion. If you have been to the Japanese pavilion when at Epcot, you know how Mitsukoshi takes up most of the floor plan, and beyond it, there's room towards the back. There would have been a Mount Fuji roller coaster. Oddly enough, this never happened because Kodak was a big sponsor with Disney World. So they did not want a ride themed around Fuji when their main competitor at the time was Fujifilm. So that one was scrapped pretty quickly and never came to fruition and saw the light of day, which frankly, that would have actually been a very thrilling ride and would have been the first roller coaster in Epcot way before Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind even came into the park.
A few years back at one of the D23 expos, there were a lot of big rumors about the addition of a new country being added to Epcot, which we were really very excited about. Nothing like that had ever really been proposed at this real of a level since we've been born.
And as far as we know, it got this close to actually happening before the plug was pulled right at the last second.
Very close to the 2020 pandemic time period. It was before that, but still close to that. This would have been, at least rumored, to have been Brazil, which again was rumored to then potentially go into, there's an expansion pad right next to Germany. Everyone knows this as the area with the little tiny railroad, Tiny Town, we love. I love going to see the trains go around and seeing all the little banners for all the different festivals and see all the people decorated and everything like that. But this is where that would have gone, potentially, where the Brazil pavilion could have gone.
Really, our hopes nowadays, as we've gone so far into the future without any other countries coming about, it really lies on more rides coming into World Showcase. One of the expansion pads that we mentioned are still around was actually taken just about 5 years ago when Ratatouille came into France. That was an expansion pad. They went behind France and took up one of the areas where some other country could have gone. Jen mentioned the hollow wall in Germany. We're looking at you, Rapunzel. That is where that needs to go. We have already seen the ride out in Fantasy Springs in Tokyo.
And it looks amazing if you haven't seen it.
Not saying that has to be exactly what goes there, but Rapunzel no longer needs to just have a bathroom at Walt Disney World. Put a ride in the Germany pavilion behind the hollow wall. That hollow wall is where the load area would have been for that river ride. It's already there. Just fill it in with Rapunzel. And the other big one that honestly I'm kind of surprised hasn't happened at this point because it makes too much sense, Coco in Mexico. We've already seen some theming elements to this. Mariachi Cobre plays Coco music at times. We have the Coco exhibit within the entrance of the pyramid in
Coco
Mexico.
Merchandise as well.
But the problem with that is, one, we would unfortunately lose the Grand Fiesta Tour where they have the beautiful animatronics of the Three Caballeros. And two, you would have to really mess up the floor plan of Mexico to get that ride in there, because the Coco ride cannot just be small like it is now with Grand Fiesta Tour. You would have to really expand the footprint of that area.
Which would, I think, really be at least upsetting to me personally. That's one of my favorite pavilions just to go into. It takes you on an entirely different adventure because it's so transformative. You go into, if you're in the middle of the day, when you come into the pavilion, it's nighttime, and it's just so unique and so special in that way.
And bonus points if you remember that ride being El Rio del Tiempo before the influence of the Three Caballeros got in there. Both of them are great. Me, preferably with Donald, is my favorite. I like the update, but every rendition of that ride in Mexico since Epcot have been great.
And as a history teacher, El Rio del Tiempo was one of my personal favorite ones there. But I do love Donald, so it's more kid-friendly in that way.
Yeah.
All right, now we are going to be moving to Hollywood Studios to take a look at 2 different potential options. So now we're gonna move into one that is one of the hardest for me to actually go into. This is the losing of the Great Movie Ride. This one was really difficult for both of us to get through. Not so much because of the loss of Great Movie Ride, although that was part of it, but because when it was rumored to be replaced with a Great Mickey Ride, we were actually really excited for this, just being huge Disney history fans and Mickey Mouse fans and going through all the classics that Mickey was part of, Sorcerer's Apprentice, all kinds of different pieces. And then it didn't come to fruition. It came in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which we have differing opinions on this. I don't mind it so much. I think it's cute. It's not like a must-do for me every single time. Our kids do enjoy doing it, so for that, it's a really good addition. But as adults growing up with Mickey, it really would have been so special to have that Great Mickey Ride and be able to see Mickey and all his changes over the years.
Jen said she doesn't mind it so much. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is one of my least favorite attractions in all of Disney World. Partly because it's so disjointed, in my opinion. It's not a through storyline that I like to see in an attraction. There's parts of it I enjoy, and there's gags that I enjoy within it. But if I'm going to lose the Great Movie Ride, it needs to be for something that is better than what this was. This is one of the most iconic attractions in Disney World history, was supposed to be the start of a pavilion in Epcot. That Great Mickey Ride probably would have done it for me. Going through the history of all of Mickey's cartoons and shorts, from Steamboat Willie to Sorcerer's Apprentice to Plain Crazy, Three Musketeers, and the Mickey and the Beanstalk, all of those. I would have eaten every single bit of that up. What even makes it more painful for me is seeing the queue for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway out at Disneyland.
It's so cool.
You get a tease of the Great Mickey Ride in there. If you've never been to Disneyland or haven't been since they redid Toontown to add this in, go watch some videos of that queue, because they set it up like you're going through a history of Mickey's different shorts. They've got props and costume, set pieces and such. And it's actually where the advent of the Power Lime candy came about too, because it acts like a concession stand going into the movie theater within that ride.
And I'm going to second that particular piece about the queue. The queue, I love the Chinese theater. It's something so special and so iconic, especially growing up, going to Hollywood Studios, back then at MGM. But having nothing in that queue, especially since we go with our kids so often, we look for hidden Mickeys. And they like watching the posters as some of them change. That little visual piece is really fun for them. But if you're standing in a long line for a while, you're only able to do that for so long before they kind of get bored of it. And the ability to go through and see, oh look, that was Mickey's sorcerer's hat, or that was Mickey's wand, or that was whatever it is, whatever piece or prop that's in the queue in Disneyland as they go through, it's just so engaging and special for them. And even as adults, it's just kind of cool, like, oh look, that's Mickey's. We all get like giddy inside thinking about that. So that little bit, I think, would help if we had that in the queue.
Mickey does turn 100 in just a couple years in 2028. I'm really holding out hope that we get the first Mickey movie in 2028. They have already said that there will be an original feature that year, so fingers crossed on that one.
That would be cool.
But I really hope one day we get the Great Mickey ride, because I think Runaway Railway, with the current animation style they use, is not one that will stick around forever. Eventually they have to change it, I think, and that would be a great way to do so.
I would agree. The animation style too is not my absolute preference and favorite there. Some of the characters are cute, and then some of them look a little sketchy. Just leave it at that. I prefer the old classic.
Well, of course they look sketchy. They're animated.
Oh, humor.
All right, well, like we said, coming into this section, we have 2 timelines that we're going to visit within this one. So we already talked about what would have happened with the Great Movie Ride if the Great Mickey Ride would have came into play. But now we're going to go to another area of Hollywood Studios and explore Galaxy's Edge. Not that it wouldn't have happened, but instead, what if it stuck to the original plans for that area?
This is not quite, again, so much that Galaxy's Edge wouldn't have ever happened, but what if it had happened with the original trilogy? So in meaning that, we're talking about things like not going to a brand new planet, not going to Black Spire Outpost, but instead going to Hoth, or are we going to Endor? Those kinds of different places.
I'm trying not to get on a soapbox with this one, because as a huge Star Wars fan, I am not a huge fan of Galaxy's Edge. It does not give me the Star Wars adventure I think Disney was trying to insinuate within this area. So Jen mentioned some of the original trilogy stories. The big rumors were that we would have seen Endor and potentially Tatooine as well there too. You would have gotten a speeder bike ride. I mean, who can't remember, if you've been to Hollywood Studios back in the 90s and early 2000s, seeing the speeder bike photo op outside of Star Tours?
Being able to do it. Those are fun pictures.
Yeah, same thing, like we wanted to have the pod racing ride, and we finally got a version of that within Star Tours eventually. We would have had Mos Eisley Cantina instead of Oga's Cantina, where DJ Rex is at now. I think that would have definitely captivated audiences a lot more. It would have connected with a lot more people, because you were visiting the areas you've seen in the movies that you grew up with, that you've introduced your kids to, instead of the sequel trilogy, which a lot of people are mixed opinions on. Myself, I like Force Awakens. The other two, not a huge fan of.
I'll second that.
So that would have been an easier way to connect with people. Look at the recent news that's come from Disneyland. Disneyland is actually splitting Galaxy's Edge in half, where they're keeping Rise of the Resistance, but the other half is going to be themed to the original trilogy. You're going to be able to meet Darth Vader and original trilogy characters like Han, Luke, and Leia, where we're not getting that yet in Florida.
You might even get to see Ahsoka, which is one of our oldest daughter's absolute favorite Star Wars characters, potentially favorite character of all time. So to be able to see some of those original characters, get to actually interact with them. You know, we've already got Chewie, and we love going to see Chewie. So him still being in there would be fantastic, but being able to add Han, Luke, and Leia to that, Ahsoka, Darth Vader roaming around. Personally, I prefer Darth Vader over Kylo Ren, but, you know, personal preference. But having those original characters that everyone has connected to, the ones that people fell in love with originally, and being able to not only ride the rides that take you into those particular parts of the movie and the trilogy, but also meet and interact with those characters, just kind of makes it next level. And I know some may argue next level is going to be creating some entirely new world, and I understand that argument too. Black Spire Outpost does not bother me nearly as much as it does bother Zach.
Who knows what the future may hold at Disney World. I think eventually it makes too much sense that we will eventually see the original trilogy stories start to make their way into Hollywood Studios.
In some capacity.
If for anything, please just bring us the characters. Disneyland, and this is another soapbox entirely I could get on, Disneyland has so many other characters that Disney World does not get. I'm very tired of hearing all the time about Disneyland getting certain characters that Disney doesn't. Even
very jealous.
Even looking at the recent announcement of the characters that are going to the Animation Academy, that once that comes back to Hollywood Studios. Not a huge fan of the lineup that's coming there, even though I love meeting all of them. I think the bigger question that would come with this, though, is what eventually happens to Rise of the Resistance? It is such a big e-ticket ride. Not my personal favorite, but it is definitely a world-class attraction. It's great. But eventually, at what point does that get redone to be an original trilogy story? Not much would have to be done with it, probably. You just have to replace a couple animatronics with that of, older stormtroopers, Darth Vader, maybe you get a Grand Moff Tarkin in there instead of General Hux, something like that. But that's going to be the big question that within the next 5 to 7-ish years, we're probably going to need to get an answer on. What is the fate of Rise of the Resistance? I guess we can say only the Force will be able to tell.
So we have now returned from our time traveling trip, taking a look at 3 different alternative universes in 3 different parks across all Walt Disney World to kind of take a look at what potentially could have happened through all the rumors, all the blue sky plans that had been and never came to fruition.
I greatly advise, if you were really interested in this subject, give us a like, make sure you subscribe to this video, and if we hit 10 likes on this video, we'll come out with a part 2, because there are so many other stories we can look at of things that never happened, or things that maybe we never lost. Dinosaur, great movie ride, Maelstrom in Norway, and what if the Dreamfinder never went away from Figment? And we hope that he comes back soon one day. But if you liked this, make sure you give that like so we can get a part 2 of this one coming sooner rather than later.
That's all for us today. I'm Jen, this is Zach, we're the Disney Pros, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.